right. What a splendid time to be doing this again. Just get chat set up. A moment. Uh, Let me actually put something on TV. Where's the remote? There we go. Almost done and almost ready to get this shit on the road. It's kind of loud, but that's okay. Volume isn't an issue. Almost done, almost done. I say we are almost done. Get my volume, make sure. There we go. All right. Here we are. T-Rex, my boy. So, I mean, yesterday we had a good discussion about a lot of things. Mm, None of them really important, though. Um, to the layman, at least. Today, I don't know if we're going to do that. We might not. I mean, we already have, intriguing and riveting entertainment right here on the No Internet page. And a lot of you may be asking, how am I streaming without having internet? And, if this was later in the stream, I might say that that's a story for a later time, or place even. Because I don't know if, discussing how I'm streaming on the internet while I have no internet connection is really a, relevant thing. I mean, you don't talk about, like in the interview movie, you don't talk about assassinating Kim Jong-un in North Korea, really. So, the same thing would be true for here. Um, at least in my opinion. I don't want to be, pleading the fifth on something if it ever comes back to get me. Um, I mean, I guess the short of it is that ISPs hate me. And that's how I am doing it. I think this might be a game that we could speed run, maybe. It wouldn't be a traditional speed run, of course. You couldn't do that. Um, you know. You could try, though. I don't really know how that would work. All your splits would probably always be the same. But I mean, maybe they wouldn't. You know, maybe they wouldn't. You'd, you'd have to try it. You never know until you try. Unless it's something, you know, will you or won't you like gay sex? That's probably something that's more, you got a pretty good idea whether or not you'd like that or not. Um, and of course, for the women, it would be lesbian sex, not just trying to be sexist or anything and say only men, you know. But yeah, I mean, something like that, you probably got a pretty good idea. Unless it turns out that you're bi. Um, I mean, that throws a whole monkey wrench into everything, I guess. Literally and figuratively, I guess. If you really think about it. Um, and that's actually might be an aid in that question. If you really do think about whether or not you'd like gay sex or you're bi, there's probably a predisposition to it for you. Um, I mean, if you can really imagine that happening to yourself and you would potentially like it, you know, what do you know? Uh, I don't really know anything else that we could be talking about that would be better than that. Disappointingly, I have to admit. Yeah, that's close. I got lucky there. I hope this mic is picking me up okay. Of course, my nose is itchy again. Gotta love having a never-ending sinus infection thanks to allergies. Always, at least one of my nostrils is plugged. Frequently both, though. So I often have to be a dirty, damned mouth breather. Uh, you know, Actually, like that's been a lifelong problem for me. I remember I actually didn't even know you could breathe out of your nose. That's how crazy my sinuses are. Kind of like Chucky from Rugrats, though. And in a way, it really is because, like, the rare day, like I get maybe one of these a year, but the rare day when my like sinuses aren't completely blocked, like I can smell fucking everything, man. It's like kind of cool in a way, like that. My nose is like super strong. Um, it just sucks that I can only use it like once, maybe twice a year. I mean, I could maybe try picking my nose constantly, but it is a sinus infection, not just nasal congestion. Although I definitely get that too. But with the sinus infection, uh, you like your nostrils, or not nostrils, your nasal sinuses, all of your sinuses, they constrict. So, even if I was picking my nose and getting all the mucus out, um, it wouldn't necessarily help because, the airways are just narrower. unfortunately, picking my nose won't help. Some days it might, you know, I don't know. I always try to blow my nose out, like in the shower and whatnot, try to get as much out as I can because it can be a problem when I sleep. It can be a problem when I sleep. So definitely got to make sure at night that I really, you know, as best as I can, get the airflow going, so to speak. Um, I mean, it's kind of funny because, you know, when you think about something like that, you know, definitely the air, the circulatory system is probably one of the most obvious um, systems where you can have a blockage like that, you know, either from too much mucus, too much of a substance, you know, in there, or just, you know, the sinuses constricting because of an allergy. But you can also get that in your asshole. You know, you can get blockages there too. And the scary thing about that is, what do they call that? You know, it can like cause your intestines to puncture, rupture, whatever. I don't know what the proper word is. Um, and so you can literally have shit on your insides, you know, like get sepsis from that. So, I mean, if you haven't taken a shit for a couple days, you better get, you know, get to the doctor. Or I guess, you know, the other obvious thing you could do. Um, I don't know if I want to say on the stream, but, you know, I mean, it kind of ties in with what I was talking about earlier, now that I think about it. But, you know, and I mean, I just got to say this again. I think I did say it before. You know, if I didn't, I apologize. But I mean, gay people are fine. You know, I don't have a problem with them. And you know, same for lesbians and whatnot. I actually, and you know, extend that to the whole LGBT. Uh, I think there's a fifth letter now, but I don't remember. You know, no offense meant if I forgot your letter. But I mean, I actually know, or I guess knew now, a trans person. They were a nice, you know, person, normal. Um, Probably wouldn't really be able to tell. Um, they just preferred to be more like androgynous, you know, gender neutral, and I mean, that's fine. Don't really care. Uh, I don't think it ever got brought up. Um, you know, it was, you know, they post some stuff on Facebook every now and then about, you know, pride parades and, you know, LGBT rights issues, that kind of thing. And I'm just kind of like, you know, whatever, you know, I'll like it if you want me to. Because, I mean, I don't hold that against somebody. I mean, if somebody is like a dude and they're trying to come on to me, I might just, and they don't take no for an answer kind of thing, then we might have a problem. But I mean, otherwise, I don't really give a shit. I do not believe I am any of that stuff. I'm pretty, pretty straight, I would say. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1, let's see, how would you do that? I guess it would be negative 10 to 10, positive 10, where negative 10 would be gay. I guess 0 would be bi, and 10 would be straight. I mean, I would definitely have to say I'm at least an 8. Because, I mean, I have no desire to be, you know, with a naked guy, no desire to be doing anything, sexually with the guy, and whether he's the pitcher or I'm the pitcher kind of thing. Um, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say that the idea is repulsive to me, but you know, there you go. Um, I do like a nice female body, though. I mean, if you have one, you deserve some recognition for that. That's all that I kind of got to say about that. I have no problem giving a compliment for a nice set of tits. Ass is harder to say though, because I mean you have to straight up actually, you know, be naked to actually compliment a nice ass, or maybe yoga pants. But my problem is with that is like with that you're more so complimenting like whatever style of pants that the person's wearing. Like if you say somebody's got a nice ass, it's like, well, I mean they have properly fitted, jeans or properly fitted or whatever. That's really what you're saying. Um, but like, tits you can imagine pretty well, I think. If the ass can leave a little bit to the imagination, especially if they got like cellulite or something like that, because that's something that the pants would hide. Yeah, which is a little disappointing, I think. Or, I mean, it's disappointing, if you're like, hey, you got a nice ass and, you guys hook up and whatnot, and then, you know, she drops trow and it's just like, hey, why don't we try something new called clothes on sex, where we leave our clothes on and we don't have sex. You know, that's probably what I would do. I mean, a little scar or birthmark, something like that's nothing to be worried about. But like, I don't know. You don't want to have cottage cheese ass. That's kind of all that I'm getting at. I would pray that you don't have cottage cheese anywhere else. I'll just say. Um, for some reason, I can't help but imagine that every time I say it. I don't know why. That's why I'm kind of making, kind of losing my train of thought here with the game. I have a beautiful mind. Oh, one, two, three. One, two, three. Hey, I was holding the fucking jump button. Apparently, the game doesn't always let you do that. Getting distracted for the very wrong reasons. Let's stay focused. I wonder if I can see this without my glasses. Oh, I can see it. Gonna give my eyes a little break. Apparently, one way that you can tell somebody has allergies is by dark circles around their eyes. I always thought that was, sleep, not enough sleep, I guess well, not deprivation. Uh, I don't know what you would call it. Because if you're sleep deprived, then that would mean, somebody is actually keeping you up. I guess if you're an insomniac like me, um, you would be keeping yourself up. So I guess sleep deprived would work. But yeah, I actually, when I was living in Canada, I went to an allergist and they said, I have all of the telltale signs of somebody who is a lifelong allergy sufferer. And they actually ran a test for me for what I was allergic to. And I believe this was like 4 years ago. I believe I was allergic to dust, um, mold and mildew, cats. I think that was it. And cats is a really interesting one. Like dust, I think basically everybody's allergic to dust. I would be concerned about you if you weren't allergic to dust. Uh, Mold and mildew, I kind of can feel the same thing. And, I lived in Michigan, Ontario, and Nova Scotia. So you're going to get a lot of like mold and mildew there from all the trees and greenery. Cats, though, I've never been around cats, really. Just, maybe an hour here and there at like a friend or relative who had a cat. But, I mean, up until recently, I probably, in my entire life, only spent around 12 hours around a cat, or, more than one cat. Actually, let me just round it up to a day, 24 hours. And a few months ago, we actually adopted a cat. We adopted a Lynx Point Siamese, and the breed was a good coincidence, Siamese, because they don't always do this, but those cats tend to produce less of the allergen. So if you didn't know, a cat's allergen, so the reason that you are allergic to a cat, it's not really the dander or the hair. It's a chemical that's found naturally in their saliva. I forget what it's called, um, but when a cat grooms himself, they're moving that chemical all around them, in their saliva, and so that's why people will, wrongfully assume that, they're allergic to cat hair or whatever, cat dander. And it's really just the saliva that they're allergic to. Um, but this guy that we have, he's a 6-year-old three-legged cat. And the incident where he lost his leg actually happened about a month before we adopted him. So, it's a little bit sad to think that his owners, gave him up, right after it happened. And, it was kind of like their fault. Um, but, whatever. He has a wonderful personality, very affectionate for a cat. You could say he's charming in a way. Always wants to be around us. Very good boy too. Every now and then we'll just, maybe a couple times a month. Don't want to make it sound like it happens all the time, but just a couple times a month we catch him uh, getting ready to start, using his claws on our cloth furniture or the carpeting. And, the second that we just go like, hey, or something like that, he knows to stop. So very good boy. Uh, yeah. His name is Bon Jovi. That was the name that he came with. And we didn't want to change it. We wanted to make his transition as easy as possible. Because we've never had a cat before, my wife or I, so we didn't want to get, crazy with, let's change everything that we possibly can for the guy. But he adjusted really quick. He was a little bit suspicious of the apartment for about the first 30 minutes, maybe hour. And then by the time he was home for those first 2 hours, he was already passed out on my lap. So, I mean, he was very sociable and whatnot. When we were at the adoption event, um, we, walked around the cages and whatnot, and he was the only cat that actually looked like calm and relaxed. Didn't mind being there, and when he saw us, he started, rubbing up against the cage and whatnot to get our attention and all that. And we spent about an hour and a half with him in the pet playroom or whatever you would call it. And because I'm the one that's allergic to cats. Um, so I was, rubbing my face in him and all that kind of thing, trying to see if we could get an allergic reaction to happen. And the only thing that happened was just got a couple little like pimples or whatever you call them, spots on my arm. I think I had two. They were really small, and I mean, we thought about it. Been dog people our whole life, but this guy is kind of like a dog with, only the good dog traits and all the good cat traits. So he's kind of like the best of both worlds. So we went with him, and we're pretty darn happy that we got him. It's very therapeutic to pet him. He's almost like a therapy pet in a way. What's going on? Chat, I just noticed stopped. Is it working or is it not working? Can't tell. No, it's not working. Why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? Let's see. Did my phone freeze? I think the Twitch app froze. I don't know if any, I assume everybody's still here. That is here. Hello, Mr. Phone. Well, this is exciting. Yeah, but Mr. Bon Jovi, all he does is he just kind of sleeps all day. Every now and then gets up to have a little snack. And then at night he comes and sleeps in the bed with us. Always on my wife's side. I don't mind him coming onto my side, but he's always on her side, which is fine with me. Funny thing about that is, she is actually having worse allergies than I am to him. She always knew she had like a real mild cat allergy. And what happened with my phone is for whatever reason, whatever power saving mode that it has, it decided to shut off all my processors. So that would be why the Twitch app froze, because it didn't have a fucking processor to use. Uh, Very good design by Huawei. I'm one of the few people that still has a working Nexus 6P. I had to change the battery. When was that? Maybe 6 months ago. 6 months or less ago. And, it had been going, I needed to change it like a year before then. So, the battery started dying when it was a year old. And, like, it could only keep, I would say maybe if I had it at 100%, I'd have about maybe 2 hours of actual phone use. So, yeah, I ended up, just looking online to see how you change a battery and, how much it costs and all that. And I found a kit on Amazon that sells a replacement battery for your phone. And, I did it myself. It took me, I would say, it took me about an hour. I didn't have all of the right tools. The kit didn't come with everything that you needed. But I mean, the kit was only like about five, maybe $10. It was dirt cheap. That's why I was a bit suspicious about it. But I mean, the battery's been great. Uh, yeah, I can actually like, I get, you know, a couple days use out of it. Except, when I stream like this, I always use my phone for chat. Um, yeah, what's that? I have pretty shit vision, so I'm surprised I can actually see this. I don't have anything blown up and whatnot. I'm nearsighted, so if somebody with perfect vision has 20/20 vision, I have, I think, I think it's 420 vision or 2400. What somebody with perfect vision can see from 400 feet away, I have to be 20 feet away to see it. That's whatever that measurement is. Yeah, I get my shit eyes on my mom's side. My grandpa was actually legally blind, which I think you're legally blind if your eyesight is like 1620. I think that's what legally blind is. My eyesight, it seems to have stopped getting worse. My prescription hasn't increased over the past 5 or so years, which is good. It actually decreased because I was actually overprescribed um, for about, I don't know, maybe 4 years I was overprescribed. So that eye doctor had me at like 425, I think. And actually, I mean, technically, I guess my prescription is closer to 375 than 400. So like my contacts are 375, but my glasses are 4. Um, and I guess like the logic behind that is, like since they don't do, that they do the quarterly increments. Um, they don't want to overprescribe my contacts, but my glasses, they sit a little bit away from my eyes. They're not actually on the eye like the contacts are. So, you know, and for people like me, they just slightly up the prescription, the next step up from what the contacts are. Well, yeah, I didn't know that having overprescribed vision, at least like if I just had to, you know, pretty minor, that doesn't actually hurt your eyes or anything. It just causes them to, I guess, strain a little bit. That's all. So my eyesight, wasn't worsened by being overprescribed. It was just, you know, I am prone to headaches and migraines, so it probably just made it a little bit easier for me to get one of those. That's part of why I actually have my glasses off now. Just kind of giving my eyes the break so I don't get a migraine or anything like that. I've kind of had one for about the last 3 weeks. Um, and on like a scale of 1 to 10 as far as pain goes, it probably hasn't gone above a 6. But when the first about week that I had it, it wasn't responding to the ibuprofen that I was taking. And I was taking, 800 milligrams of it 3 times a day. And it didn't feel like it was really helping. And then I actually got some prescription strength. Again, I'm holding it down, not doing anything. But anyways, I got some prescription strength ibuprofen, which is only 600 milligrams. And that worked better than the over-the-counter 800 milligrams. So if you can figure that one out, um, I guess the moral of that story is don't buy medication from Walmart. Because who knows, it says, each one was 200 milligrams of ibuprofen, but it wasn't working. If 800 does not work and 600 does work, I think the 800 count or measure, weight, whatever, it's kind of shitty, shit quality. But I mean, that's what you expect from Walmart. You expect, shit that's gonna break in a week. You expect, old rotten fruit and vegetables and all that fresh food. But it's cheaper, it's 25 cents cheaper. It might kill me, but it's cheaper. Capitalism at its finest. Oh man. Well, that just reminded me. Um, I guess the closest Walmart to where I am. So I'm in Henderson, Nevada. I couldn't see that one. Thank you, shit eyesight. I'm gonna put my glasses back on. But the closest Walmart to us is maybe like 5 miles away, give or take a couple. Yeah, I mean, it's in a decent area and all that, but I guess, Walmart tends to attract a certain crowd of folk. And I guess the police get called there so frequently that Walmart actually gave the police their own parking spot there. And I mean, yeah, I mean, when we've gone in there, it's like, oh, hey, look at that. There's a parking spot for the police. And it's before even all the handicap spots too, which I think is pretty funny. Uh, but yeah, the police have their own parking spot at our local Walmart. We actually have a Walmart grocery store. That's it says it's just groceries, but it looks like they have like everything except clothes, like the furniture stuff and electronics. So it's more than just a grocery store, I think. But we have one of those probably mile and a half away. Doesn't seem like it has as good of a selection as like an actual Walmart though, which is, that's kind of odd as far as groceries go. But yeah, we try not to eat anything that comes from Walmart. Not sure, what's going in it, especially after the medicine, which we thought would be, like FDA controlled and whatnot. I mean, they're using some kind of inferior products. Ooh, I don't know why. Sometimes like jumping over the guys that you're supposed to duck under. It makes it exciting. I don't think the feet have collision detection. I actually don't even think the back part of, like the tail, I guess, has collision detection either. I think it's just, I'm not 100% sure where the collision detection starts. Probably somewhere, like at some point in the middle of the T-Rex is where the collision is. Because now that I think about it, even when he like runs into the bird, they kind of, like meld forms a bit. Ooh, I'm pretty sure I did see the legs go straight through that bird, but I'm not 100% sure. Actually, I think that the birthday hat has collision detection because I think yesterday I was trying to duck under stuff, but the hat was hitting it. Or there's just something, weird with the hitbox, like it's bigger vertically, which I mean that would make sense, but like it extends above the T-Rex's head for some reason, which that's kind of dumb if you ask me. I made or was working on a game in Unity, and like pixel perfect hitbox box detection was nice and everything, but I found that it was, when playing the game, it was quite a bit frustrating because, the game's happening, you know, at 60 frames per second. And so that pixel perfect detection, it actually looks a little bit off. It doesn't quite look right. Uh, which that's kind of like the weirdest thing about it, to me at least. Because I mean, in the editor, I edit, just pretty basic shape, so I was able to use. I think I still was using the polygon detection, hitbox detection, um, but I probably could have gotten away with, just like a square or circle or maybe even a capsule type, whatever that was called in 2D. And so, yeah, what I ended up doing was just shrinking the size of the hitbox by roughly 10 to 20%. I, you know, did it on each sprite individually until it looked and felt right. And yeah, that's kind of what my experience with Pixel Perfect Collision is. Oh, it's not to say that, there isn't a time and place for it. Like certain games, like shooters, you'd probably want pixel perfect. Except on the player character, you'd probably want to shrink it, like the 10% maybe. If it's a single player shooter. But yeah, you'd definitely want all of the AI controlled stuff to be pixel perfect. And maybe even in a player versus player environment, like a deathmatch or something like that, you'd want to have pixel perfect then. But when it's, player versus AI, want to give the player a slight edge, I would think. But then again, you would just program, the accuracy of the AI. Is the AI, you know, like shit and only going to hit, half the time? Or is it actually really good and it's going to be hitting, 95% plus of the time? Because, yeah, I mean, that would make more sense, I think. Uh, but you'd probably still want to give a little leeway to the hitbox for collision detection with, oh boy, with like walls and stuff, I would think. But who knows? Not slept well last night. Being an insomniac and whatnot. It happens. It can happen. I don't know if anybody out there follows hockey, the NHL. Uh, but that's going to be starting in what, like a week? I think about a week actually. What's today, the 25th? 26th? Yeah, I think next Thursday is the first game of the seasons for everybody, or for most people, most teams. Ugh, Vegas had a crazy run last year. I was always, you know, growing up in Michigan, I was, well, I guess the first team that I really liked, aside from Detroit, was actually the Avalanche, Colorado. And that this was in the heyday of the rivalry and whatnot. Back when Patrick Waugh would have press conferences before every Wings game and talk about how he'd want to kick their asses and whatnot, fight them if they, bring it on if they want to bring it on, kind of thing. Oh, what an entertainer he was. I miss him. I wish he was still the coach. Well, yeah, when I moved to Canada, it was a few years before I moved to Canada. I became a dedicated Wings fan. Uh, and then, and then they've been shit for the last 4 or 5 seasons. And when I was in Nova Scotia, I was actually kind of enjoying watching them. Uh, but when I moved to Vegas in 16, just something about them, oops, just something about them, like it looked like they weren't trying anymore. Like they knew that they were such shit players that they just kind of like gave up. Like everybody except for Zetterberg, at least. Zetterberg always worked his ass off, and it's a shame that he's not going to be around this season. Even though I don't really plan on watching any of their games. Um, yeah, when the league announced, the official Golden Knights back in like, when was that? April of 17. Like, I was all in on them then. I couldn't be happier. And part of that was because Detroit sucked. It was easy to give up Detroit for like a brand new team full of possibilities and whatnot. And like I actually, I was like the first one in my family to like be like, yeah, Detroit, they can fuck off, they can learn to play hockey kind of thing. And my family's like, oh, what do you think Vegas is gonna do? And I said they'd finish in either a wild card spot or just miss the playoffs. So like that would be like between like seventh and 10th place in my mind in the West. Um, yeah, I don't think anybody expected them to do as good as they did. I remember I went to their first public practice. I have that on my Facebook. I'm thinking it was September 5th. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, there were probably like, 50 people there when it started and it peaked at, maybe 150 people. And by the time that they got to the playoffs, I think, like, you couldn't even get into those practices. And, you know, every time that they won a playoff series, the congestion, the crowds at their practices somehow kept getting, worse and worse, or just more and more. I guess not necessarily worse, but yeah, and we actually, because City National Arena, that's next to um, like an outdoor mall in Summerlin, and we went there once, and didn't even realize that it was a practice day because they were playing an away game, I think the following day, so I thought that they were already gone. But they were getting a send off from the fans, and this is a mall that has like a parking garage, outdoor parking. There's a casino next to it, and they have their own parking garage, and there's just tons of places where you could be parking, and there was not a goddamn spot anywhere to park. It was fucking nuts, and like the practice arena has its own parking lot and whatnot. It's a really nice arena, and I mean it should be. It's like 2 years old maybe. It's got like two rinks attached to it. There's a restaurant in the middle, and then they have the what would you call it? Not like just like the official or second. They have one of the two official like brick and mortar Golden Knights stores there too. Uh, but yeah, I mean it like the fandom when they were doing good, like by the middle of the season was like nuts, and like playoffs like was even loonier. We went to the plaza outside of T-Mobile Arena. I think we did it for like one game in each series, except for the finals. Actually, I think we did it for a total of 5 games before the cup finals. So, we went, whatever that would come out to. Uh, we never went to the D for the watch parties, though. Don't know why. But every time that we went, it just got busier and busier and busier. And we never went during the Stanley Cup Finals because we figured it would be, absolutely fucking jammed, which it was. Apparently, there were so many people there for the Cup Finals that, aside from police and whatnot having to come and like turn people away and whatnot, um, like you apparently couldn't, like it was such densely packed that you couldn't even walk anywhere. That's how many people were fucking there. I mean, imagine that. Being in a place where you are just like you're standing outside in the fucking June heat. It was probably the games I would say definitely 105 and up. And I mean they didn't have much shade there. Um, Actually, I don't really. Well, yeah, they did have a couple of like the round picnic table things with like umbrellas and shit in them. But I mean, as far as shade, I mean, it's all open above. So, I mean, you're standing in that for, 3, maybe 4 hours, depending on how early you get there. Um, you can't even fucking move because there's so many people there. Absolutely nuts. Ah, fuck. And my brother, he was the last one to join the Golden Knights bandwagon. I remember he went to it would have been the home games for Vegas because my family all lives here now. But he went to the Detroit game wearing a Datsuk jersey, and he went to the Capitals game, a regular season game. I think that was maybe in January, wearing an Ovechkin jersey. Uh, and that game, both of those games were kind of significant to the Knights because in the Wings game, Fleury got injured. Um, and in the Caps game, whoever the goalie was, I'm not sure if Fleury was back then or not. I think Fleury was back in December, so he was probably back. Um, but yeah, whoever was the goal, they got a shutout. I don't think it was the first shutout for the team. Um, I'm pretty sure they had a shutout or two before then, but I'm not 100% sure because I think Oscar Dansk and Subban maybe got shutouts. I know Legacy didn't get or Legacy didn't get a fucking shutout. That guy was so depressing to watch. I can only imagine what a good season they would have had if they actually had, healthy goaltending, or I should say if their healthiest goalie wasn't their fourth backup. Because it was Fleury, Subban, Dansk, then I think Legacy. I think for shits and giggles, they put the fifth guy in for like the last 5 minutes or so of the third period in a game. I don't. I think he only had like one shot against him, and he stopped it. Uh, don't 100% remember that though. I like the way the team looks this season better than last season. You know, we lost Neil and Perron and got Pacioretty and Stastny. I would have liked to have kept Perron, or at least one of them. But I mean, I figured Neil was going to move on. And I mean, I was following, like all the trade talks and whatnot, and Perron, it was obvious he wanted to leave too. Um, I'm so glad that they got rid of the Tatar contract, though, for fuck's sakes. That dude, he was frustrating as hell to watch on the wings. You know, one of their best goal scorers, somehow. I think he would score. He'd get a hat trick in like a 6-1 win for the Wings. So like he would score when he didn't need to score, kind of thing. And the Wings did occasionally have a blowout like that because I mean, they were still making the playoffs. But I mean, they would be a quick elimination. They'd be done in 5 games or something like that over the last few seasons when the streak was still alive. And I don't think Tatar really ever did anything in the playoffs for the Wings, but my God, when the Knights picked him up, my whole family was just like, "What the fuck?" I mean, him and Nyquist are both pretty bad. But Tatar, that contract that they gave him, fucking that was a disgrace of a contract for that guy. Absolutely disgusting contract. I can't believe Montreal took it. I can't believe Montreal took that fucking contract. Because I mean, Tatar, he would be a solid player to have on your team if he was getting paid maybe a third to a half of what he's getting paid. He's making like 5.6 million a fucking season. That's fucking absolutely insane. And I mean, to talk about insane contracts, they just signed Shea Theodore for 7 years for I think 5.2 million a season. And I mean, that dude, he was by he was probably one of the better defensemen in the playoffs, but in the regular season, he was, kind of invisible. Um, so I don't know what the hell they were thinking there. Um, it's a shame about what happened with Nate Schmidt, though. They found some kind of, you know, 7 billionths of a banned substance in him, and so they gave him a 20-game suspension. I don't know about that. He claims, innocence, but I mean, I don't know what to think about it. He had, medical, like doctors and shit testifying on his behalf that, that small amount wasn't doing anything. Looking at his numbers, it's not doing anything. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I would think that he knew that he was taking something that had, a banned substance in it, or maybe he didn't know it was a banned substance. But I mean, athletes have a pretty good idea of, what's going in their bodies. So when you're at that profession professional level. You know, you're gonna know everything that you're eating. I doubt somebody, laced a fried egg with it, whatever the substance was. So pretty sure he was taking something. I hope it wasn't like marijuana, or God forbid. God fucking forbid. I don't understand because the league said that their stance on marijuana isn't going to change once it's legalized in Canada. I mean, granted, it's still, federally a controlled substance in the U.S., but who in the fuck is going to be taking marijuana to be like as like a performance enhancing or whatever you'd want to call it drug? I mean, that shit makes you tired unless I haven't taken a sativa, but I've used, hybrids and indicas for sleep usually, or mainly. Um, and I mean, yeah, I mean, you're not going to be fucking playing hockey if you got that shit in your system. You're not going to be doing much of anything active with that in your system. So, I mean, the sativas are supposed to be more stimulating. Uh, but I mean, I've never taken one because, the main reason that I use it is to help with my sleep. So I basically just take enough to make me pass out. Every now and then I stream while high too. Drunk or high. It really changes the experience of the game because something that is, normally pretty easy that, becomes a little bit harder, your twitch reflex, so to speak, is inhibited a little bit. And so I think I was playing either Mario Kart or Mario Maker when I was high, and I was able to stay, pretty well in the middle of the road, which is, normal for me. Uh, but like a lot of other stuff just wasn't working out, you know. And normally, when I play online, I take it quite serious. I wasn't minding that I was getting, nuked at the finish line and going from first to sixth place and all that stuff that I'd normally be bitching up a storm about. Because, marijuana, I mean, I read an article about this. It was like an op-ed. But, I mean, if you're on marijuana, chances are you're going to be, just in general, a much better person. You're not going to be somebody that gets offended by everything that somebody does. You're not going to be, complaining about everything. You're going to just kind of like sit back and enjoy. That's kind of what's good about marijuana. And to go off of that, I do every now and then use it for anxiety. Because I do actually have that a bit. I've never been good at, meeting new people and whatnot. And don't even get me started on a job interview or similar situation. Those are kind of funny to think about. I've only done that wasn't officially a job interview. I've only done 3 official job interviews. Uh, and you can imagine, 2 of them resulted in me not getting the job, whereas 1 did. But I knew some people with the one that I got the job at, and I was told before um, the interview started that I had the job, no matter what, that, they were going to just talk to me as part of a formality, and I was still fucking nervous as hell, but that definitely took the edge off. Um, like instead of, at an edge, between 1 and 10, instead of being at a 25, I was down to about a 15. Uh, and I always love when people, they like, oh, you have anxiety? Why don't you just talk to people? It's like, yeah, of course. Why didn't I think of that? I must be so fucking stupid. That's why, I don't have anxiety. I just have a case of the dumbasses. Couldn't just think to talk to somebody on my own. Had to be told it by somebody. It's like, of course. It's so simple. And, it's not that I never had, not that I never had situations when I was younger where I had to, like, meet new people. I went through that. I went from elementary school, from a kindergarten to eighth grade elementary school, elementary, middle school, all in one building. I went to the high school where nobody was going to, and then, so I had to meet all new people there. And then I was there for 2 years and then went to a completely different high school. Or actually, I think one person from the other high school went. So I technically did know one person, but again, I still had to meet all new people. And then, you know, of my friends that continued to the same college as me, none of them, of course, went into my major. So, after pretty sure after um, semester one, I never saw them again. So again, having to meet new people. And then after I got my job, I had to meet all new coworkers and whatnot. Uh, but yeah, it's just something I do not excel at. I'm very introverted, uh, but apparently I've heard that the definitions for introvert and extrovert are actually mixed up. So an introvert is somebody, how did it go? An introvert is somebody who can like fulfill their social aspect of their life. Or the extrovert, let's start with that one because I remember that one. An extrovert was somebody who, when being in a social situation, like somebody else initiates the social contact with them. Whereas an introvert, they would, I guess, be the one initiating the social contact with somebody else. I don't remember it. It didn't make much sense to me, but that's what I heard. Um, so by that definition, I'm definitely an extrovert because, if I get my hair cut or whatever, I'm not going to be talking much to much at all to the person that's cutting it unless they talk to me, or I somehow know them. I generally, I'm not unfriendly, but I generally don't wave at people I don't know and stuff like that unless they wave at me first. Then it's like whatever. Hey, how are you doing? Somebody I don't know. Like I don't do that type of social bullshit, so to speak. If I say hi to you, I mean, like hi. If I say how are you doing, I mean how are you doing. I'm not doing it to be polite. That was actually a big problem when I lived in Nova Scotia, or when we were living in Nova Scotia, because Nova Scotia is a very rural place, and it's got a very low population density. So it has like an about 900,000 people living there, and I think like about it's either like six or 700,000 of those people all live in like one of two cities, Halifax or Dartmouth, and they're kind of like right, and those two cities are right next to each other. So you've got this big province where, the entire population, like 80 plus percent of the population is all in one area, and then the rest of the population is just kind of like spread out in little packets. And we were in one of the in the summer busier packets because it was a tourism place, Lunenburg. But in the winter it was, desolate, lonely, and working from home. I don't agree with that. Working from home kind of, made all that worse. So, I always explain it to people. Imagine in a given month, the only social, meaningful, I'll say, social contact that you have is, with your spouse. We could maybe extend that to like your parents and siblings, but even then that would be, potentially three or more people. So, just pick one family member and my dog. That was all the social contact that I had any given month when I was in Nova Scotia. And I definitely cracked under the pressure of that a lot more than I thought I would. I would always joke to my wife. I'd call her Wendy and tell her to give me the bat, and that I wasn't going to hurt her and stuff like that. If you watched the previous video, you know that I am a fan of The Shining. The movie was a lot better than the book, but the book and the movie tell two different stories. So it's not really fair to compare the two. The the movie you could say was like bad fan fiction, but it was like awesome bad fan fiction. Um, I think what the movie did so much more successfully than the book was, convey like the real sense of like horror. Whereas the book, it was always apparent from the beginning that there were like ghosts there. So it was a supernatural horror. And to me, supernatural horror, I mean, it has the potential to be scary, but it usually isn't. And the main potential for it to be scary is because you don't necessarily know what this supernatural entity is capable of doing. But at the same time, immediately when there's, a ghost or something involved that, oh, this isn't reality. This couldn't happen in reality. Whereas, the movie, it was more of like a psychological horror story. Like, Jack's been crazy for how fucking long for him to type up all those pages, right? And that's kind of like the realization that Wendy has in that scene. It's like, there's a stack of probably 2,000 pages of him typing, the all work and no play bit. And that's why she looks so horrified. Because in her mind, it's like, holy shit, he's been like this for weeks, for months. She thought he was working on, a novel, and turns out he had fucking lost his mind, shortly after they got here. Uh, yeah. I think Stanley Kubrick did go on record of saying that there were ghosts at the Overlook Hotel in the movie. But I think the movie would have been better served if there weren't any ghosts. Some of those YouTube videos that I've seen have some really good theories about, what would happen, like how to explain the movie if there were no ghosts. Like if it turns out it was, Jack being crazy, how do you explain, Grady? How do you explain the twins? How do you explain, the ballroom with all the skeletons in it? And how do you explain any of the other scenes that have people that are not Jack, Wendy, and Danny in them? Uh, and you can look up those on your own, but the one explanation that I liked was that Danny was trying to manifest these characters to help his parents deal with, the situation. And he didn't know any better with what he was doing. He's just a powerful psychic or whatever bullshit. And he's getting these like surface thoughts from his parents, and so he tries to manifest them in a way that he thinks that they would take in like a calming kind of way, but I mean he doesn't know any better. So he's, instead of manifesting, puppy dogs and rainbows, he's manifesting, ghosts and goblins kind of thing. That was, pretty good explanation, I thought. Um, and I remember when I was younger, I'm 33, so when I was younger, when I was a wee lad, I remember seeing The Shining, and I touched about this a little bit in the other video, where like the outdoor layout of the Overlook wasn't consistent. Like even in the opening of the movie, if you look at the opening shots of the outside, you don't see the hedge maze anywhere. But whenever they show the hedge maze, they always show it, right outside the front door, within easy vision of the front door. So an explanation for why that is, why the layout doesn't make any sense if you try to map it out, is that Stanley Kubrick was trying to create a sense of disorientation to the viewers. Like the viewer trying to keep tabs on where the action is happening at the hotel. They wouldn't be able to because it doesn't make any sense. Um, yeah. Whoops. Reading the text. But yeah, it's surprising what kind of following The Shining has gotten, and it was apparently a flop at the movies when it came out. Everybody hated it. Um, I don't really know why you would hate that movie. I think my parents always liked it because I remember seeing bits and pieces of it when I was maybe 5 or so. I have a horribly good memory. Um, yeah. but I remember them liking it back then. Having copying it on VHS or something and watching it every now and then. But yeah, I never watched the whole movie when I was that age, of course. I did watch the television movie of it though when it was actually airing on TV, and that horrified me. Even though I watched it, I forced myself to watch it the entire thing as an adult, not because I was afraid of it, but because it was fucking horrible. Um, and especially when you compare it to the new one that came out. Uh, that was Summer of 17, right? Yeah, Summer of 17. Um, and the explanation for that one was, like ABC fucking Family Channel made the It TV movie in, 89 or 90, whenever it was. And so, it was going to be like the family friendly horror movie. I don't really know what the hell they were thinking. I do like the clown better in that one. I think they went a bit too, what would you call it, with the new clown? I don't know what the correct word is, but too punk or something. I don't know. But the movie was definitely better, and it was a lot closer to the book. It actually had a few things that weren't in the book that I thought were a lot better. Like I loved who was the character? It was Stan when he was alone in the room with the painting that came to life. I thought that was one of my like favorite moments from that movie. Uh, because I mean that was one of the things that would scare the shit out of anybody if a painting came to life. And who hasn't thought of that about a painting before? Who hasn't seen like a really realistic painting or just any like painting of a face, whether abstract or not, and they've seen the eyes following them or something like that. Like it looks like in a different light. In one light, it looks like something's going on, and then in a different light, a whole different scene is going on, kind of thing. Uh, so I thought that was like a really genius element to put in there or scene. Um, oh yeah, and then there's one other thing that will never be shown in an It movie. And I actually, I read the novel too. Had read beforehand that apparently, and I didn't know where this happened in the book, other than I knew it happened after um, the kids, defeated but didn't kill Pennywise. Uh, they have like an orgy in the book, and I mean, I read about that beforehand. I don't remember how I stumbled across it, but I stumble across things. Um, and I was just like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, this couldn't actually happen. They wouldn't actually, you know, publish that in a book. And I mean, they fucking published it in the book. They fucking published a child, you know, 10-year-old kid's orgy. Like, what the hell? Apparently, the explanation for the scene is that it's supposed to represent um, like a coming to adulthood, no pun intended, uh, prematurely. Oh, another no pun intended. Oh god. Um, but yeah, that is the explanation for it. Um, I think it could have been conveyed in a different way. Just my opinion. Um, yeah, just my opinion. Oh yeah, and one thing I wasn't, I mean, I liked better in the book, but I guess the movie wanted to stray a little bit further away from, the child sex elements of the book. But that Beverly, I was about to say Beverly, but Beverly, she isn't bullied in school. I don't know if you'd consider her one of the popular kids, but she's not bullied or anything like that. And I kind of just like that element a little bit better because I thought the bullying thing was a bit, I don't know, just a bit boring. Big, I guess cliche. Been there, done that kind of thing. Um, what's his name? The fat kid, because I can't think of his name. He wasn't Ben. Ben was his name. He wasn't the new kid. He was just, an unpopular kid because he was, kind of like fat and awkward. That's all. Um, but yeah, he wasn't like a historian or anything like that. Like the scene in the garage with like the projector coming to life and turns out it is the mom or something like that. That never happened in the book. I don't remember who was the history kid, if there even was one. But yeah, like in the book, like there's just like chapters about the fucking history of dairy and shit like that. There is actually one chapter that is from the perspective of it towards the end, which was pretty interesting. And I mean, when it is, defeated in the end, I mean, that's seen. I mean, the when they defeated him in the book as kids, I mean, that scene didn't make it in there, and I'm not talking about the orgy. I'm just talking about the fucking scene. Um, that didn't make it for good fucking reason, because it's weird as hell. But it's even a little bit weirder when they defeat him as an adult. Like I don't fucking I don't know why Stephen King, like it's like it was such a good concept and story, and then he's got like all this weird fucking shit that makes no fucking sense at all at the end. It's like, did you like have a stroke or something and that part of your brain stopped working while you were writing this, or what? Because like the first, you know, 80% or so of the book was awesome. A little bit slow at times, but still like a really, really good writing. And then it was just like, well, ask the magic conch shell what to do, and it told me what to do when I did it. It's just kind of like, okay, Stephen, old buddy, old pal, you might need to go talk to somebody about that. Game of Thrones was fucking awesome. The Song of Fire and Ice uh, books. Book one was like almost like a direct, word for word copy of season one. Like that was probably the most disappointing thing about that book to me. There really wasn't anything new. It was kind of fun to just think back and be like, oh yeah, I remember that happening. I remember that happening. That's not quite how it happened in the TV show, but I kind of did that through the entire reading of it. Um, book two was a bit. It was different, but it was how would you describe it? It was just nothing really significant happened in book two. Uh, book three was awesome, just like season three was awesome. Uh, book four was really good too. Uh, Probably not as good as book three or five, but it was definitely like a third third great one. You know, compared to one and two, where one and two would be fourth and fifth as far as which were good and not. Like books three, four, and five are kind of like in a league of their own when compared to books one and two. Uh, but yeah, I remember when I finished book five, I was like, I need more. Like, hurry the fuck up, George. Uh, but I remember, I thought it was this year, maybe it's next year. Book six is actually supposed to come out, and potentially it'll be bundled with book seven. So I am looking forward to that. Um, but yeah, as far as the books, like it's a toss up between book three and five, and then four, and then I think a distant toss up between two and one. Um, yeah, but some of those books were fucking long and they were in small print. I think book three was the longest, the highest page count and the smallest font. Yeah, but I mean, like I think I'm gonna end up going back and reading books three, four, and five again at some point because they were just so good. And it's funny to think about that because seasons four and five of Game of Thrones sucked. Aside from Hardhome in season five, um, I mean, those were definitely low points of the show. Season six um, was sort of a return to form for Game of Thrones, and then season seven was fucking like awesome. Definitely, as far as the show goes, it would be probably a toss up between seasons three and seven. Um, I would take points off against season seven just because it was a shortened season. Um, and I mean, the same's going to be true for eight when that comes out, you know. But yeah, I mean, far and away, seasons four and five were the worst. Um, three and seven were the best, and then one, two, and six are somewhere in the middle. Probably, I would take a guess and probably say two, one, and then six would be how I'd rank the middle. And then I really don't know between season four and five. Because they dropped the ball on so many plot lines that were awesome in the book, it's not even funny. Hard Home never happened in the book. That never happened. And even the way that John was killed at the end of five was different. Um, yeah. But yeah, I can't wait for season eight, like everybody else. I don't know what to think about any of the spin-off shows that are going to happen with Game of Thrones. Um, I don't know. I suspect that those are going to be crap. I'll just put it out there. There might be, because I think they have like 7 fucking spin-offs planned for it. So like, you can tell that they're obviously trying to milk that for everything that they fucking can. And that's why I think it's going to be garbage. Because it's not going to be fan service. It's going to be, you know, cash grab, and it's probably going to just have like every fantasy cliche that you could imagine in there, you know. I think it would be cool to see, you know, more of like the Night King's history and what's it called? When he took over the Night's Watch. I forget what that event was called. And that's why, you know, they don't have any walls on the southern side of the wall of Castle Black or any of the castles, so that if the Knights Commander or Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, you know, goes mad again, you know, he can be easily stormed and, you know, apprehended. You know, I think seeing that would be cool, but at the same time, we've kind of seen a lot of the major events from Brand's perspective. So those events, if they do make it to, you know, TV, if they are, you know, like a season spinoff or whatever, I mean, we're gonna have already seen those events. So I don't really know if the filler in between there is going to be interesting enough to justify giving it, you know, a whole season. That's my concern, and that would be my concern with, you know, any of the spin-offs. Um, a lot of the side plots, they make a good couple episodes, but if you try to do an entire season, or heaven forbid, more than one season about them, you know, Fear the Walking Dead uh, style, you're gonna find that you're not gonna have, you know, material, and it's gonna all just start running together again. And actually, Walking Dead too. Haven't watched either show. Fear the Walking Dead. Tried to give it a chance, but it literally was just like the same fucking shit in a different setting. They didn't do anything different or unique with it. Just rehashed. And then that's all that The Walking Dead is now. It's fucking rehashed. You know, how many more times are they gonna have to, you know, abandon their base because of humans wrecking it? You know, they need to tweak the formula little bit. You should actually, I mean, I'm sure that they're following the comics. I remember somebody who watched the comics and the show told me that Negan's not even the halfway point of the comics, or the graphic novel. Excuse me. The graphic fucking novel isn't, Negan's not the halfway point yet. So, I think they need to, you know, fast forward a little bit to get some of the fans watching it again. I don't know. I kind of liked Better Call Saul, but I wasn't a fan of the walk of Breaking Bad though. Breaking Bad actually put me to sleep. Um, but I liked Better Call Saul for some reason. And then I just stopped watching it. I don't really know why. I think that show again kind of it just became like the same thing but shown in a different way each episode, and I think that's kind of why I stopped watching it. You know, the writers only had so many ideas on how to spin a certain plot line. As far as TV shows that I watch now, though, we don't actually have cable, and I we don't really even watch any shows now. Now that I think about it, I just fucking watch what's on, YouTube, and I rarely even watch stuff on Twitch. You see, to me, um, I mean, there is an entertainment value inherent in watching somebody play a game, but for me, I would probably rather watch. I'd rather play than watch. That's just my, own thing. Um, and I don't, everybody does their own thing as far as entertainment goes. So, whatever. If I can provide you with entertainment by recording myself playing, you know, this game or any game, then, whatever. I actually do watch some streamers on YouTube, usually just highlights because I don't have the attention span to actually watch, a 4 hour stream. I have the attention span to watch a 4 hour stream broken it down to 20 minutes, you know, but I don't really have, ooh, you can do that, huh? Oh, now we got some new strats going on here. But yeah, I mean, I'm too, lazy. I don't have the video know-how to, you know, cut my videos into highlights and stuff like that. So, and when I come across a streamer like that does that, they just upload the full stream or, like a full section of their stream, segment of their stream. And even sometimes with the highlight videos, because, you know, I don't like doing the same thing for too long. I always got to be doing something different. Um, I usually actually watch video game highlights at on YouTube, and I need to stop turning away from the screen. He turns away from the screen as he says that, but I usually will watch at speed 1.25 times. Doesn't make a big difference, but instead of spending 20 minutes watching a video, I'll spend 15 minutes. Well, actually, not even that. I'd spend like 17 and a half minutes watching. And it just condenses, speeds up some of the slower parts. If there's a part that's really interesting, I will slow the speed down. Um, but I mean, like 1.25 times is like hardly noticeable. You would probably only, you'd, like if you're really familiar with the game, you'd probably be like, oh yeah, this is happening a little bit quicker than usual. But it's mainly just the talking, when that gets sped up, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that dude's talking really quick. English speakers, especially us Americans, talk pretty damn fucking slow when you compare it to, other languages and nationalities. Like, I mean, listen to somebody talking in, Spanish, a Mexican person talking Spanish. Holy fuck, man. It's like they're attacking you with, syllables and whatnot, tildes, accents. Like, man, dude. But yeah, it's hard to understand them just because they talk quicker. But from like a global standpoint, it's just English speakers speak slower. Don't really know why. Maybe it's because of all those special case grammatical things that we gotta think about really hard while we're saying them. You know, I don't know. Maybe the syllables are just harder to pronounce or something. I don't know. Oops. I think I'm done. 2 fucking hours. Beat my old high score by about 6,000. Almost exactly 6,000. Uh, didn't break to 20,000 though. A little disappointed about that. I thought I would do it today. I think I only had the one run above 10,000 too. That's a little disappointing. Um, yeah, maybe tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Yeah. Well, let's see if I can actually close out of this or if this is going to go to a different screen. Different monitor. Excuse me. You're over there now. You're not over here. That's my old setup when you're over there. Now you're here. So, bye bye.